we may think a lot about different things that we did not experience or see. By thinking of these things, these people, we usually create a potential picture, aka imagination. So, based upon previous images, previous experiences, previous people you've met in your life, you create a sketch of something that has to happen in the future, or something related to foreseeing, for instance. The most truthful foreseeing has to be unbiased, and the main bias is, of course, imagination. Keep in mind that this does not mean necessarily that imagination is something bad and something that has to be wiped out. Alright? Imagination is a great tool. And it has been proven by many people to be that kind of a tool, which helped them to bring up their inventions, to level up in their lives. So we can say that imagination is just a thought, a little piece of thought. But that little piece of thought is not the only thought that exists. There's a multitude of those thoughts, and they exist in a domain. Of course, not physical. And probably it's not a mental one, and it is called open-mindedness. So, when you're open-minded, say you get a myriad of thoughts related to absolutely any topic. Things might get really crazy up to the point when you mix, for instance, politics with, I don't know, perhaps with Shrek universe, I don't know, or perhaps Disney universe. Again, all kinds of stuff can come up when you're in open-mindedness. But see, when we think about something that has not happened, or about something we do not know, or someone, we, by we I mean our minds. It's usually our minds behind all this imagination stuff. So, for instance, you saw a flower, a tulip. So, you got that image, right, of that flower. Then, imagine getting a news that astronauts have found some kind of a new flower located on the moon. Moonflower, so to say. And just in this case, let's imagine that tulip is the only flower you are familiar with. So, when you hear these news, a flower has been discovered on the moon, what pops up into your mind after hearing these news? The first thing, probably something of a white color and in a shape of tulip. Or we may take something more realistic, a real life example. So imagine that someone at some point you were bullied, right? There was a group of bullies, mainly boys. So you saw them, it has left a traumatic mark on your psychology, on your psyche, on your mind, on your mental health. It had detrimental effects. So if it is actually trauma, every time you will see a group of men approaching to you, as you notice them, your body will most likely associate them with those people who at some point bullied you. So as they approach, we do not know what's going to happen. But most likely, of course, they will pass you, right? But perhaps there is a 0.001% chance that one of them will call you. Then everybody else in the group will turn towards you, circle you, and then do the same stuff that those hypothetical bullies did to you in the past. And this second scenario is what your mind is responsible for making. But this is, again, thought. Thought. It's just an image and nothing else. No more, no less. Just an image based upon past experience. Alright? So, why are we even talking about this imagination stuff? Because when we talk about attaining the truth, the main topic of our channel, right? Attainment of truth depends upon whether you are unbiased enough to realize that truth. And one of the most covert, one of the most dormant biases you may stumble upon in your journey is most likely imagination. You imagine what is truth. How do you know that this is the real truth? Huh? How do you know that the image of Jesus is the truth? How do you know that, I don't know, some statue, some idol is God? Huh? And this is where religions like Islam or not Buddhism, but Taoism, they successfully cope with this issue of making a physical God, so to say. And why do we even talk about God when we talked about truth, you would ask? Well, isn't truth and God the same? Does not truth equal to God? Well, perhaps truth is much more vast than God, or God is much more vast than truth, but the only truth, okay, the only truth is God, and God is truth. It is something quite intuitive we can grasp. The sole truth is God. So when we imagine God as a physical form, Jesus, or I don't know, Yahweh. I think Yahweh was at some point depicted as a statue, and people bow to that statue. If my memory does not mislead me. Yeah. So all the idols, basically, all the physical depictions of the god may lead you to the truth. However, just sticking to these imaginations will not guarantee attainment of the real truth. Because the absolute truth, even the word truth, it does not mean something physical. You understand that? It is not material. Jesus or Yahweh or other idols such as other two famous gods of good and evil in Zoroastrianism, these old deities are symbolic, you know? Religion is nowadays perceived as something, literal. When at the core, religion is totally spiritual. Spiritual does not mean that everything that is said is literal. And most of the religions that come from East have a tendency to covertly put some deep meaning under words that, when superficially perceived, are misleading. So when you read some epic story, either in the Bible or Quran, you intuitively feel that this could not be true, but this is a divine book, a sacred book. How could that book tell lies? Well, maybe it is you, the liar. You lie to yourself. Huh? You just don't want to dig up a little bit further to see what this actually means. And if you don't want doing that, then is there even a meaning to proceed studying religion or getting the truth? I mean, it's up to you, but a waste of time, I guess. So, imagining the truth, what it could be. It could be tasty, it could be in a human shape, it could be, in a feminine shape, or in a masculine shape, or it could come you as a vision of perhaps God in Eden, or it could come to you as anything you can imagine. Even a dinosaur crushing you with its feet. Yeah, you can imagine anything. Open-mindedness, you see? But the truth is beyond the mind. Because, as you know, as we understood, as was said previously, imagination is the work of the mind. And when you go beyond your mind, you go beyond your borders of your wonderland. And when you go beyond those borders, you finally see the big world. You see the truth. You become conscious of it. You become conscious of consciousness. You become conscious of God. You become conscious of Jesus. You become conscious of love. You become the truth. At the beginning, of course, it could be a good tool to use imagination to guide you through this path that leads you to nowhere, basically. Because, truth is formless and shapeless and tasteless, all that stuff. Because of that, it's nowhere. It is just what it is. It is a shape beyond our imagination. There's 2D, there's 3D, and there's 4D. All right. 4D is something we could not imagine. And perhaps truth is even beyond these ideas we have. So on your path, you may use different imaginations. So I want to pinpoint that again. Different imaginations. Mostly, people regard truth as some ecstatic feeling, so you may orient to that imagination at some point, but expand your knowledge, alright? When you are on the path of truth, you do not just simply isolate yourself from the world and from the knowledge, because you will be stuck on a certain level of understanding, and you'll be stuck in irrational levels of thinking. But you should grow up, as Ken Wilber stated in his theory of integral thinking. As you get to the level of integral thinking through surpassing those conventional ways of thinking, you become at 90% or even 100%, I don't know, could be anything. You become almost totally unbiased. And when you are unbiased, you are the most, so to say, vulnerable to the truth, to getting hit by the truth. So imagine kind of ladder, right? At first point, you imagine God as or the truth. These are synonymous, so we could use either one. You can imagine God as your grandpa sitting on the heaven, watching down you, doing stuff, jumping around, playing with your dog or any other pet, looking up the sky and just living your happy life. Then on the next step, you may imagine God as in religions, as Islam, as in religions of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, perhaps. So you just imagine God as, again, something formless, yet something that does not relate to you. It does not somehow, it is not related to you. It is something separate from you, right? Then as you go up this ladder, the idea of distinction between you and God, it just disappears. And at this point, when this division disappears, you attain something akin to the enlightenment of Sufi. How to say that? Sufi followers. You'll get some truth akin to that of the Sufi followers, or you will get to the Tao, or to the level of Gautama Buddha. And all this extends into infinity. And because of that, it is beyond imagination. When we imagine something, it is something finite, a particular thought of, I don't know, of an image of sun, an image of trees, an image of horses, an image of river, of sea, an image of orca, or an image of Pinocchio, I don't know. You can create all the things, but they disappear again and again. So they are too infinite, but when you stick to something that constantly disappears and leads nowhere per se, this may lead you to nowhere. This may lead you to truth, in other words, if you follow, again, different imaginations. If you do not stick to one particular imagination. How you perceive things. Perception plays a huge role. How you perceive the world around you. You imagine when you hear a word chair, a solid thing with 4 legs and a spine on which you usually rest your back. But perhaps some other person may imagine a different thing, completely different. And because of that division, imagination creates. It is not the best method by which you come to know God, come to know self, come to know the truth. Go beyond that. Observe those thoughts, imaginations. Observe them. Observe the expectations about the truth. Observe. Do not judge. Just watch. Enjoy the observation, and at some point you'll be sucked suddenly into a hole of truth where you will be firstly in the darkness, and suddenly a light comes up. By the way, this was my imagination, but perhaps it feels something as in this scenario I gave. Be beyond all. Be beyond your mind. And beyond your mind, beyond your body, exists the first principle. That first principle is your, what is called in the realm of Western metaphysics, soul. Or the real self, the real you. Knowing thyself means to go beyond everything, every material, physical stuff. Go beyond that and see what is in what kind of a, what is beyond your sphere of perception. What is beyond that? What is beyond this barrier of body, flesh, mind, brains, electrons, neurons? What is beyond that? And at that point comes total solitude.